Studios original.
Hello, and welcome to Web Crawlers, the podcast where we do a deep dive into some of our favorite unsolved mysteries. Each week, we will introduce our topic, lay out our research and findings, reveal some conspiracy theories, and conclude with our own hypothesis. Who knows, we might even solve a case. I am Allie Siegel.
And I'm Melissa Stetton.
As usual, Web Crawlers has a Patreon to get access to rewards, bonus episodes, videos, shoutouts, and merchandise discounts. Please go to patreon.com/webcrawlers. And now is a great time to join because December, we're going to be cranking out a lot of good stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And if you want to go holiday shopping, you want that merch discount. For sure.
Oh, yeah. You want that merch discount.
You want that merch discount. For merch, you can go to webcrawlerspod.com or
hothorse.horse.
If you're nasty. Even bigger news, we have a cameo. We just did one the other day, which was really fascinating.
Yeah.
Where someone just asked us personal questions.
They asked us, like, what's our favorite short stories?
What's our favorite short stories? Who are some of our favorite authors? And we gabbed.
It was like
answered.
a mini podcast.
It was a personalized mini podcast.
Yes.
So if you want to ask us personal questions about our lives and we'll answer just for you, you can go to webcrawlerspod at Cameo and maybe we'll do another discount for the holidays.
Oh, yeah. Black Friday.
Black Friday.
Y'all.
And also when it's online, people can't trample each other.
Right.
Which is good.
That's great.
So maybe Cyber Monday.
Cyber Monday. Watch out for all those discounts.
If you're nasty. And then also we have another podcast that we just started called 90 Day Fiancé Slumber Party.
Yes.
Where me, Melissa, and Rachel Fisher from Hollywood Crime Scene go over our favorite reality show, 90 Day Fiancé. If you want to tune into that, rate, subscribe, join our Patreon, and listen, it is 90 Day Fiancé Slumber Party.
It's a whole good time.
Yes, it is great. Let's get into our episode for the week. Who are our Patreon shoutouts?
Well, Patreon shoutouts, we have Tamra R.
Yes.
Lindsay E.
Uh-huh.
MetaMass.
Fascinating.
Laura W. and Maura L.
MetaMask sounds like a superhero.
It probably is.
I agree. Melissa, let's get into our weird thing of the week.
Okay, our weird thing of the week is kind of cool. We actually have an interview with someone.
So stoked.
It's about the oddball, aka the Betz Sphere.
Yes.
It's
You Betz
Sphere.
Allie, when you yell, you don't have to get closer to the microphone.
Okay.
Anyway, this Betz Sphere.
You betcha.
Oh, God. It's this metal ball. It's about the size of a bowling ball. It's 22 pounds.
Wow.
It was found in a yard in Florida in 1974. Florida, Jacksonville. And the family who found it, they initially thought it was an old cannonball, and they brought it home with them.
As you would.
Yep. And then, according to them, the ball started moving on its own.
Oh, my gosh.
And they heard mysterious organ music playing in their house.
Oh, no.
So they called the newspaper. They're like, you guys got to check this out.
Yeah. Extra. Read all about
So
it.
then we got an interview with Lindsay Kilbride. She actually has a podcast out right now called Oddball.
Yes, it's all new and noteworthy on Apple.
And so we're going to play this real quick interview.
Yes.
And then we're going to discuss what we think about it.
Here it is.
So tell us about the premise of your new podcast, Oddball.
Oddball is a mystery. It's a story about this really heavy metal ball a family found in Jacksonville, Florida in the 1970s. So this family was walking through the woods. They found this metal ball. They brought it inside, and then they noticed a few weeks later that the ball seemed to move in odd patterns. So it would roll in a straight line and then suddenly veer, or roll around the sides of a table and wind up in the middle and vibrate, and all these different claims. So shortly after that, the Navy investigated it, and then all these well-known scientists and UFO investigators, and no one could ever figure out what it was. So to this day, it's still a mystery. The podcast Oddball really aims to put that mystery to rest. But along the way, I really uncover a lot of new details and arms to the story, because the story is also about how this family was impacted by the discovering of the sphere.
So this all happened in Fort George Island, Florida, at a location called the Neff House, where Jerry, her husband, and her son lived. The ball is not the first mysterious thing to happen at this home. Can you elaborate on the Neff House's bizarre history?
Yeah, so this house is a really big part of episode 2. And you're right, it's not the first mysterious thing to happen at the house. Jerry and her family, which, by the way, Jerry has 6 kids, so a lot of them. But they're living in this huge mansion hidden away in the woods. And it kind of looks like a castle. I mean, the house has this big side tower that's kind of round like a castle. And it's still really hidden today. So you can imagine how much less developed it probably was in the 70s. So supposedly the house was haunted. The local paper had this kind of a fun Halloween story about how strange events occurred. Organ music would play, but the family didn't have an organ, or they found broken dishes on the ground, but yet the cabinet that they were in had been closed. So there's a weird history behind the house, too. The house was built for a Chicago real estate agent and his family, but a lot of his family members died in some pretty tragic ways before they even got a chance to move in. And the real estate agent himself killed himself. So then some decades later, the Betz family moves in. So we explore all of this in the podcast. It's kind of just another interesting detail, and it's kind of like, is this related at all? And we kind of look into all that.
So they found a silver sphere at their house. What did it look like? What kind of properties did it have?
The ball was found a little further away from their house. The Betz family owned a ton of land in the area, so they actually found the ball on some of their property miles from the home, and it was very deep in the woods. And when they brought it inside, the ball was covered in scratches. And Jerry, the matriarch of the family, I have a really old recorded interview of her I was able to find. And she actually says that when you look at the scratches under a magnifying glass, they look like starbursts, like, little suns or something like that, which I hadn't read anywhere else in any articles, but I don't know. That's what she said. And then another physical characteristic was that the ball had a small triangular chip out of the side of it. So other than that, the Navy looked at the ball and determined it to be stainless steel, or at least the shell, the outside of it was. It was 8 inches in diameter, so that's about the size of a bowling ball, and it was really, really heavy. It was about 22 pounds. And then when you shook the ball, you could hear something inside of it. So it was probably hollow. And then an X-ray revealed that there were 3 tiny spheres inside of the ball. I mean, and then other than that, they said the ball moved around weirdly, and that's sort of up for debate. Like, different people have different opinions of what was causing that. And then different scientists had different opinions about the ball's properties. So we kind of get all into that in the podcast. But as far as what the government was saying about the ball, this was what was documented.
Carl Wilson from the Omega-1 Institute reported that not only did the sphere have a magnetic field, but that it was also transmitting a radio signal. What do you make of that?
Yes, Carl Wilson. So I just want to say first, it's really tough because different scientists examined the ball and came to different conclusions, and a lot of different things are reported about the ball. But with this guy specifically, I was never able to verify Carl Wilson is a real person or was a real person. In fact, his name is Williston in some articles. It's Wilson spelled differently in other articles. I mean, that's kind of the hard thing with doing a story that took place in the 70s. So I talked to some very well-known UFO experts, and no one had ever heard of him or this institute. So it was sort of hard to even take this claim seriously. But it seems like the more outrageous claims about the ball, those are what you see in all the modern blog posts and write-ups about the sphere. And so for me, I took a really critical journalistic approach to all of these claims. So you'll find that when you listen to Oddball.
Dr. James Harder, a professor of fluid mechanics engineering at the University of California in Berkeley, examined the ball too. What did he find?
Harder is said to have some of the most out there claims. When you read about the ball, it's Harder's claims that people really like to talk about because they're a little bit sensational. And I don't want to give too much away about what I found to be true or likely versus unlikely, because that is a big part of the actual podcast. But Harder is the guy who says the sphere contained elements heavier than anything on Earth, but he's also quoted saying less extreme remarks about the ball too. So you sort of have to, investigate that and figure out, what's reliable and what's not. And that's a big part of the podcast.
The U.S. Navy then agreed to examine the sphere as well, and they found something different. What conclusion did they come to?
Yeah, the Navy really thought the ball was just an ordinary object, possibly from the paper mill, and that any odd rolling was due to the home having uneven floors. Although the ball supposedly rolled oddly in a bunch of different locations, including off-site. But of course, that's like a he said, she said type of thing. So there's no video of the ball rolling. But the Navy really thought this ball was just kind of a common object, probably used in an industry of some sort.
And how did the National Enquirer get involved?
Yeah, so the National Enquirer had, at this time, put together a panel of scientists to look into UFOs, a blue ribbon panel of UFO experts. And, at this time, UFOs were extremely popular. There were all these sightings and, the government had been involved in debunking UFO claims. And now scientists were really getting involved in trying to figure out, are any of these legitimate? And really the purpose of this panel, though, was probably to sell National Enquirer papers. But, the panel members were real scientists and they really wanted to do real work. And this included astronomer J. Allen Hynek. And he was basically the most famous UFO investigator scientist in the world. And he had no interest in UFOs initially in his career. But then the Air Force tapped him years before this to debunk UFO claims. And then he basically made studying UFOs his life's work. So this panel happened to be meeting a few weeks after the sphere was found in New Orleans. And so they ended up just examining the ball because the ball was making a lot of headlines at this time and people wanted to know what it was. And then in the podcast, I actually end up talking to a panelist, one of the scientists that examined the Betz Sphere. His name is Leo Sprinkle, and he's a psychologist. So that was really cool. And we find out a little bit about what he remembers about the ball. The National Enquirer was offering a cash prize to anyone who could prove extraterrestrial existence, essentially. So that was another reason people were entering things into this contest or to this panel to have them investigate it.
What happened to the Betz family?
Yeah, so the thing about this podcast is it's just as much a story about the ball as it is about a family and how this type of occurrence impacts someone's life. And that to me was really, really interesting. But essentially the family stopped talking about the ball because people wouldn't leave them alone. And strange people were showing up at their house, and there were some strange people offering them a large sum of money for the ball. And it just got really, really weird and a little bit scary for them, I think. So I don't blame them. And I talked to one of the grandkids who said that they don't even know much about the ball themselves because the family doesn't even talk much about it internally. So the family is really private about this specifically and really about their identities because they don't want people tracking them down to talk about the ball.
What do you think the sphere was?
Well, I don't want to give anything away that you learn in the podcast, but I do think there's more to the story other than the ball being from just the paper mill, and that's it. And that doesn't mean it's a UFO, but if you listen to the podcast, you'll kind of learn why I feel that way and why it's more complicated than that.
So what can people expect from your podcast?
The podcast is just a complete roller coaster. So 1 minute you're certain X is true, and then Y presents itself, and then you're thinking, no, it's definitely Z. Oh, but what about the W thing? So it's just, there's so many twists and different little rabbit holes we go down. So it's really great, but, it's definitely going to make you feel a little conflicted at times, like I said, but it's a good thing. It's a good thing. It's definitely a very weird mystery, but it's told, I think, in a fun way.
What drew you to the story?
I love this stuff. I originally saw that there was an Ancient Aliens, from the History Channel, there was an Ancient Aliens episode on the sphere, which the episode isn't super long or critical, but it was fascinating. And it was weird to me that this story happened in my hometown and I had never heard of it. And when I ran it by people, no one else had heard of it either. And second, despite the Navy and all these scientists examining the ball, there is no definitive accepted explanation as to what the ball is. So I was like, why? Like, how could they not figure that out? And I really started admiring Jerry, the main character. She's accomplished, and this is sans anything about the ball. She was just a very savvy businesswoman who had all these kinds of talents. So this happening to her was really interesting to me. So the story was perfect for me. It's a quirky, weird story, but it needed a delicate approach because this really did impact a family. I really, really, really enjoyed the project, and who knows, there could be more to come.
So, Melissa, what are some theories?
Okay, so I read that they X-rayed it, and it ended up it was just stainless steel. There was nothing in it, just like my brain.
It was just stainless steel, metal plate. Yeah, I read that it also could be a bladder tank used on spacecrafts, which are metal spheres that contain rocket fuels. Oh, not pee. They contain rocket fuels.
They don't contain rocket pee.
Oh, okay. When fuel is needed, a valve opens and the fuel squirts out. Another P term.
Yeah.
These tanks often survive when spacecrafts deorbit and burn up on re-entry. One was actually found in Namibia in 2011, although some specialists said it might be too small to be a bladder tank. There's also...
Wait, why are all of these P terms?
Because it's called a bladder tank.
There's also...
It's the term for the thing on spacecrafts that has fuel
There's also the ball check valve.
It's too early for this.
It's 11:30.
I just woke up like an hour ago.
I also woke up 10 minutes ago. She's actually still asleep. Technicians from a paper mill. Okay, think of something sad. Okay.
Oh, God.
I'm thinking of something sad. I'm browsing through Cameo.
Oh no, yeah.
This is scary.
Like Danny Bonaducci is like $5 and stuff.
Oh.
No, I know. And then there was this kid, and it just said his name, and then it said internet sensation.
Oh, that's so scary.
But also, isn't it? It seems like everyone's famous now. That
I
maybe
know.
it's like cool not to be famous.
Oh yeah, we should cancel our podcast.
When, like when I know someone or like a friend of mine who's like not on any social media, I'm like, you are so fucking cool.
Oh,
Yeah.
the
'Cause you
coolest
don't
people I know are not on
You don't
social
need the
media.
attention.
Yeah.
My boyfriend's not on social media.
And he's very cool.
He's very cool.
He's very mysterious.
He does run our dog's Instagram though.
Well, there you go.
Oh, he does. I thought that was you.
Nope.
He's the one who does like all the dog voices.
Oh no.
Like my pig.
Oh no, I did it at the beginning, but now he does. He. Don't worry, we've got it figured out.
Yeah.
Allie, stop judging.
Okay. Technicians from a paper mill identified it as a ball check valve from some large pipes used in their factory. The president of a Jacksonville company called the newspaper and told them they manufacture these ball valves. So they went to check it out. They weighed one of them and measured it, and it was 8 inches across and weighed just over 21 pounds, which are the exact measurements of the Betz Sphere.
Huh.
I bets that it's a
what
ball
it
check
was.
valve.
Or the last theory is that it could have just been a metal ball from a factory that fell off a truck.
Interesting.
So after the story broke, a Coca-Cola delivery man saw some similar looking spheres in a sculpture outside a hotel in New Mexico.
Interesting.
He called the manager of the hotel, who also happened to be the artist of the sculpture, and told him about the newspaper articles. So then reporters were calling him to ask about his 8-inch stainless steel globes. It turns out he had several sculptures that used them, including a kinetic sculpture using one as a pendulum.
Which would probably have weird properties if it's
Right.
kinetic energy.
And so this guy said he'd made a run a few years back in Florida to collect scrap metal for his sculptures.
Huh.
A friend supplied him with a bunch of balls from large industrial ball check valves at his company in 2 sizes. One was 8 inches. I can't. Allie
Sorry,
loves the
continue.
word balls.
I'm 8 years old. Okay, continue.
They came in 2 sizes. Some were 8 inches, weighing about 22 pounds, and some were 10 inches, weighing about 70 pounds. Okay, so he put the balls on the luggage rack on top of his car. He drove through the Jacksonville area in 1971, 3 years before this family found it, and he said a few of them rolled off the luggage rack
Well, there
and
you
were
go.
lost.
Uh-oh.
So
I bets that they ended up in
Yeah.
the Betz's backyard.
But who knows? But there's a whole podcast devoted to this. So if you're into this.
Yeah, you should check out the Oddball podcast.
Check it out.
Was it a metal ball or was it aliens?
Could be either.
Melissa, should we get into our main story?
Yes.
Perfect.
So last week, we talked about corporate cults and how Lululemon pays for their employees to attend Landmark. Well, there was also a very gruesome murder in a Lululemon store back in 2011.
Insane.
It's a crazy story. Let's get into it.
Hell yeah.
Jana Murray was laid to rest yesterday after being killed in the Lululemon store where she worked.
She's been killed with 6 weapons and her body riddled with 331 wounds.
Police say this was a workplace dispute gone lethal.
It was a scene painted in blood. One expert say suggests intense rage.
That with her hands tied above her head, she may have tied herself up.
She was angry, majorly angry.
On the morning of March 12th, 2011...
That's a few days after my birthday.
Oh my God.
Pisces season.
Pisces. A Lululemon manager from Bethesda, Maryland, opened the store to start her shift, and she realized something was very wrong. The store looked like it had been robbed, and she didn't want to go in by herself. So she noticed people were waiting in line at the Apple store next door, and she asked a guy if he would come inside with her. So he walks towards the back of the store, basically following a trail of blood.
Oh my God.
And he finds 2 bodies. So he naturally starts to run the fuck out of there.
Hell yeah.
But then one of the bodies starts moaning.
What?
And he realizes she's still alive.
Oh my God.
So she's bound with zip ties on her wrists and legs.
Stop.
And her face is bleeding very badly.
Oh my God.
So the manager called 911. She told the dispatcher, one person seems dead and the other person is breathing. The 2 women were identified as 29-year-old Brittany Norwood and 30-year-old Jana Murray. They were the 2 employees who had closed up the store the previous night. Brittany was still alive, but Jana was lying face down in a pool of blood. She suffered severe head trauma and was pronounced dead at the scene.
Oh my God.
So the police assumed it was a robbery with all the money missing. But the amount of trauma that Brittany experienced was significantly less than Jana. Brittany had 1 cut on her forehead and 1 on her hand, while Jana had over 300 stab wounds.
That's so many stab wounds.
That's a ton.
That's crazy. 300 so much.
Like 20 is a lot.
Yeah, 20 is a lot. Imagine stabbing someone 300 times. At the hospital, the cops interviewed Brittany. She told police that after she and Jana had closed the store for the night, she realized she forgot her wallet and needed to go back. She was a fairly new employee, she didn't have a key, and didn't have Jana's phone number. She called another employee to ask for Jana's number. The employee said, "Why don't you just call the store manager, Rachel, who lives right across the street? She can let you in." And Brittany said, "Oh, I don't want to bother her. It's late. Jana's probably not too far from here." So she gets Jana's info and calls her to ask if she could come back to open the store because she forgot her wallet. Jana says, "Sure, I actually left something inside too. I'll be right there." Brittany says the 2 women go inside to get their stuff, and 2 men in black ski masks follow them inside the store. They beat and rape them and use different items to sexually assault them. She says she tried to save Jana, but she couldn't. When the police looked at surveillance footage from that night, they see 2 men dressed in all black walking by the store around the same time Brittany and Jana were there. One even had a backpack, which Brittany also described. The police then launched a manhunt for these 2 men and offered a $150,000 reward. Important side note, the police asked Brittany if she knew what kind of car Jana drives, and she said she had no idea.
Okay. So the police actually find these guys. They are workers from a nearby restaurant, and their uniforms are all black.
Huh.
They walked by the Lululemon after work that night.
What if they worked at Cafe Gratitude?
Oh, is there one in Bethesda, Maryland?
I don't know.
God, I hope not. While investigating the crime scene, the police found various weapons and bloody footprints. Oof. One set of footprints is from Brittany. The other set is from someone wearing size 14 Reeboks. So the police look around more and actually find a pair of size 14 Reeboks in the store.
Weird.
They ask Brittany about them, and she says they keep them there for when people try on clothes or need alterations.
Size 14 Reeboks in a women's clothing store?
Well, I think there's men's clothing, too.
Really?
I guess.
I don't know. Keep talking.
Interesting.
I'll give it a Google.
Interesting. But the shoes also had a little bit of blood on them. So if they were the shoes used by one of the robbers, why would he take them off, rinse them, and leave them at the scene? Also, the footprints never leave the store. So the detectives got very suspicious as they looked more into this case. They realized her story didn't really add up. One big clue was Brittany was never actually sexually assaulted like she had said. Neither was Jana. Also, the alleged robbers only used weapons found inside the store. They didn't bring their own.
That's weird. So they use like mannequins?
Yes. Another clue was Brittany's wounds. She only had 2, one on her forehead and one on her hand. The one on her hand looked like it could have occurred from a knife slipping in her hand. Jana had hundreds of stab wounds.
300.
Over 300.
One of the detectives did not believe Brittany at all, but another detective was very hesitant to question Brittany because he didn't want to be too insensitive or victim blame her. Also, she was African American and Jana was white, so he didn't want the media to turn this into a racial issue. So he was very careful and wanted to make sure he had every bit of evidence he needed. They searched Jana's car, which was parked a few blocks from the store, and they found blood. They asked Brittany if she had ever been in Jana's car, and she said no. Brittany contacts the detectives to tell them she has something important to tell them. She goes back to the police station. She says the 2 men had her move Jana's car, but then told her to come right back or they would murder her because they had her wallet and knew her address. So she did and came back to the store. Why wouldn't you just drive off?
Yeah.
That's crazy. She obviously figured out why they had asked her about her car and needed to come up with an excuse.
Yeah.
At this point, the police are very sure she's guilty. They don't want to let her leave the police station. They eventually handcuff her to the table and read her rights. They start asking her questions about why she killed Jana, and she keeps denying everything. She asks for her family to come in. Her brother Chris is there and asks if he can speak with Brittany alone. So they let him. Brittany is worried the room is bugged, but Chris tells her he looked around and it's not. But of course, the police can hear them.
Of course,
Everything's
room.
bugged.
You
This
can hear
room is
everything.
bugged.
So Brittany tells her brother Chris, I'm going to ruin our entire family.
What?
So at this point, Chris is having doubts about her innocence. He asks her if she did it, and she says, I don't know how this happened. And he says, so you did it? But she doesn't deny it. Chris then asks if she stole something because Brittany has a history of stealing, apparently.
So it was like a sad, like, I'm going to ruin our entire family.
Yeah.
Not like I'm going to ruin our entire family.
I'm going to ruin everyone.
Yeah, no, it was like a sad, okay.
Yeah. A lot of people that were interviewed about Brittany said she stole from them. She stole from all her former jobs, and she had a problem.
Oh, my God.
She actually worked at another Lululemon before she moved to the Bethesda one because the people at that store thought she was stealing, but they couldn't prove it. So they couldn't fire her, and that's why she moved to a different store.
I am so confused about it being hard to fire people.
Because, yeah, it has to be like,
you have
especially
to have
for a corporation.
Maybe that's what it is.
You have to have so much evidence, otherwise they can like claim unemployment or like wrongful firing.
Crazy.
Yeah. So the managers of the Bethesda store had heard about her, so they were extra careful to make sure she wasn't stealing. So the managers were allowed to look in everyone's bags if they thought they were stealing. Jana, her manager, heard some complaints that Brittany may have stolen some pants. So she asks to look in Brittany's bag. She does find pants and asks Brittany for the receipt. And Brittany says, well, I don't have it.
Uh-oh.
And then Jana asks who she bought them from, and Brittany gives her a name. So Jana calls this employee to ask if they sold pants to Brittany, and they say, no, we did not. So at this point, Brittany probably knows she's busted because Jana caught her.
Yeah, Jana catches Brittany shoplifting from the store.
Yeah.
I worked at a Forever 21 once, and our purses had to be clear.
Oh.
We had to bring in clear purses so that they could see everything in our bag.
That's-
Or actually, it wasn't. It was like a Contempo.
H&M.
It was a
Contempo
Contempo
casuals.
or something like that. Rampage. It was Rampage, which is it is
Like a
defunct
buckle?
now. Yeah. So now there's a trial. Brittany is accused of murdering Jana. Forensics testified about Jana's injuries. 300 stabs, hits, 150 of those are in the head.
God.
8 different weapons were used, a wrench, a hammer, rope, box cutters, a Buddha statue.
Yeah, a Buddha statue.
Merchandise pegs, and she was stabbed with a knife in her skull that punctured her brain. They showed you have to stab someone so deep to puncture their brain.
You had to go through the skull.
The whole skull. That's crazy.
That's crazy.
I don't know. They showed that the zip ties around Brittany's wrist were tightened by her own teeth.
Mm-hmm.
So she put them on herself. Her hands were tied in front of her, not behind her. She could have reached a phone, but she just laid there. Her defense attorney used the insanity defense,
which did not work.
Jury deliberated for less than an hour. She was guilty of first-degree murder, life without parole.
So one of the theories on why she did this is that Brittany was planning on starting a new job as a fitness instructor in a few days. So she was planning on quitting Lululemon shortly anyways. So maybe she concocted this whole plan because if she got fired for stealing, it may affect her future employment.
So just murder someone instead.
Yeah, just murder instead.
That's a way better idea.
And a weird thing that came about from this is that people working at the Apple store next door that night heard the screaming and the loud commotion. They heard women screaming, like, please stop. Why are you doing this? And nobody calls the police.
That's why, they tell you that if you're being raped or assaulted, you're supposed to yell fire.
I would yell
rape.
free cake.
Also just as effective.
It probably is.
Yeah, there's a video.
Oh my God, scary.
There's a surveillance video of the employees, how they walk to the wall and they listen.
Stop it.
But one of the security guards, the manager of the security guard, he testified and he thought the noise was just drama. And then another security guard,
girls being girls.
Another security guard, he ignored it. He was listening to an iPod.
Oh my God. So he thought women murdering each other were just like, women be shopping.
Yep.
Jesus Christ.
And it's called the bystander effect.
Yeah.
Which is a theory that people are less likely to intervene during an emergency if others are around. There have been all those experiments.
Right.
Where like a homeless man is dying on the street and people ignore it.
Just walk by.
Yeah. It's crazy.
That's so scary. I mean, and it's that weird lemming thing.
Yeah.
Where you'll do whatever the people around you are doing.
Yeah.
Like if one person started helping, everyone would rally around to help.
Yep.
But it just takes that one person to do a good deed. It's like people have a fear of being embarrassed or like doing something where they don't want to be different from their peers.
Yeah, it's like Darren Brown.
Is that the magician guy?
Yes.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too.
He had this show on Netflix where he would get these people to come in because he put out a notice. He wants people to apply for like a TV show or something. He gets people to come in. One person is the person who doesn't know what's going on, and the other 10 people are actors. So
it's so crazy.
The 10 people, like, they'll do things like one person will stand and then the next person will stand, and eventually all the people will stand, and then they'll like go walk over somewhere. They'll like cross their legs in the chair. Everyone follows what they're doing.
Yeah.
It's so weird. Like, everyone's very compliant. And so he concocts this whole scheme and eventually gets the people to like almost commit murders.
Yeah, it's like group consciousness.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Fascinating.
There's an article called Kitty Genovese Syndrome and Yelling Fire.
Yeah.
Winston Moseley attacked and stabbed 24-year-old Kitty Genovese at 3 a.m. on the street near her Kew Gardens home in Queens, New York on March 11th, 1964. Her screams prompted one neighbor to shout out, causing Moseley to flee, but he soon returned to rape the helpless bleeding woman. Her subsequent screams through the 30-minute ordeal fell on deaf ears of her 38 neighbors. Moseley then stabbed her to death. Other than the neighbor who'd shouted just once, not a single one had lifted a finger to help her or even call the police. A worldwide news media fervor erupted over the neighbors' apathy, but they refused to explain their baffling behavior. Sprouting from this morass, a woeful unqualified New York Times editor concocted an escape scheme to counter such apathy in the future. He proposed the outdoor crime victims should yell fire instead of help police. Supposedly apathetic neighbors would fear a fire spreading to their own homes and call the fire department. So if it somehow involves a threat to your own safety, then you're more likely to get involved than if it's just about someone else's safety.
I'm wondering, because I always think of like if a woman came to my front door and was like screaming and pounding on the door, bleeding, and was like, he's trying to kill me. He's trying to kill me.
Afraid.
I would be afraid.
I would be afraid, Maria.
I don't know if it'd be a trick.
Give her cake.
No, it would definitely be, that would be scary. I'd tell her to wait on the porch for a second. And
I would call the police.
Call the police.
Because
outside,
it could be a trick.
You can't trust people.
Like when, you know how the serial killers put crying babies outside your door?
I always talk about the crying baby.
The crying baby.
What is this?
If you ever hear a crying baby outside your door, Allie, don't go outside. It's a recording.
Are you serious?
Yes.
What?
They put a recording of a crying baby out on the porch, and when you open the door, they attack you.
What is this urban legend? I've never heard of this.
It's real.
I think it's half real. I think they mentioned it on Unsolved Mysteries, and then like Snopes did a whole thing being like, no.
But it's a great tactic.
It's a tactic that is bound to work.
Snopes.com, crying baby serial killer victim lure.
Yeah.
Is it real?
And then there's another article that says, don't open the door for a crying baby.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's real.
I would, if I heard a cat meowing, I would probably open the door.
It's just hard with like hearing things and going like, oh, someone's screaming, I should call the cops. Because like, of course you want to do that, right? But then everything goes through your brain like, what if they're watching a television show? What if they're just goofing around? Because like I've heard people scream before and then like a minute later like laugh.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And so it's just like, I don't know. It's like, boy, we're all the men who cried wolf.
Fascinating. That's deep. Okay. No, but it's true. Like I've heard my neighbors scream and then I realize like it's a sports game that's on.
Yeah.
You know?
Or they're practicing their lines because it's Hollywood, baby.
That's Tinseltown, folks.
Tinseltown. But I feel like those Apple employees, that's should.
Different.
I would have called and it was late at night. It was after store hours.
And it's a store. It's not someone's house, you know?
Yeah.
Is this in a mall or like an indoor mall?
It was like an outdoor, it's not a strip mall, but it was like the businesses were like next to each other, like a shopping places. So they were, the walls were connected.
Right.
But they had separate entrances.
Here's a weird thing from Snopes about crying babies. I am going to try this again. Some people said they couldn't see my post as an attachment, but ladies, please read. My best friend posted this last night on her Facebook page, so you know it's legit. Ryan and I were just at the Kitsap Mall. We walked out to our car by Sears, and Ryan noticed there was a baby crying.
Who's Ryan?
Some guy. Just some guy.
Ryan Gosling.
Ryan. He's a Facebook guy.
Is this Eva Mendes writing that?
Yes. It's Eva Mendes going off on her Facebook page. And Ryan noticed there was a baby crying in a car with no adult. So we pulled over to the car and Ryan got out to look and found out through the window that it was just a recording. It was just a tape playing with a baby crying recording. There was another car parked a few spots down, a white van with blacked out windows.
Oh, no.
These are the kind of setups psychopath killers do to abduct you. Please be careful out there, everyone. Don't walk to the car. Just call security or 911. Thankfully, there was a security guard a few lots over, so we went to tell her. Oh, her.
Yeah.
Her. Yeah, that's woke. Please share this to help inform others.
I don't get it. Why wouldn't you just put the crying baby in the van?
Because people probably wouldn't. Oh, interesting. Yeah. So
don't have if you're like a freak, don't have a white van. Like people are gonna think you're a freak.
Yeah, that's true.
I guess you could well, if I saw a crying baby in a car, would I try to open the door?
If you're a freak, don't have a white van.
No, but like for real.
I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, why do you need a white van?
You don't.
I just
Get it painted.
Gray. I once saw a white van driving around. It was the scariest, most like decrepit white van. And then in bloody letters, someone had written candy on it.
No.
Oh,
it was obviously like a joke. Someone thought it was funny, but it was terrifying. Or was it true?
Or was it?
So that is the Lululemon murder and the bystander effect. Mm-hmm. Crazy. And is this potentially all because of that weird cult mentality?
Yes. There's some weird stuff going on at Lululemon.
Creates insanity in the workplace. And I don't remember this really being talked about that much. Do you?
No.
Yeah.
I didn't know this until I was looking up landmark in Lululemon.
Yeah, weird Lululemon
Yeah.
cover-up. So next time you're putting on your leggings, just know.
Just remember.
There's 300 stab wounds attached to it.
I'm on their website, and to be honest, I would always passed a Lululemon, but I'd never really taken a deep dive. And this is just,
I have one pair of leggings from Lululemon.
And?
I don't really wear them.
Can't you kind of see your butthole when you lean over?
Well, I got dark colored ones.
Oh.
Why are yoga pants $128?
That's the thing. They were very expensive. Their sizes are crazy. I'm a skinny person. I'll wear like a size 0, 2, whatever.
You're
for
slender, yeah.
I had to buy a size 8 in
What?
Lululemon. And I was like, what is going on?
Are you? Yeah, you're like a size 0 extra small.
Yeah, like I got size 2 and I was like, huh. Then I was like, I'll try a 4. And I was like, okay, these are too tight. Then I got a 6. I'm like, what is happening?
That's crazy.
They're so tight.
Well, I think that they also once had some sort of scandal where they said that they had and it was the same with Abercrombie, where they said they had a very specific idea of who they wanted their client to be.
They don't make large clothes.
They don't make large
Yeah.
clothes. Yeah, they want their clients to be slender people.
But why are they so expensive?
I mean, the material is like nice. It's like good material. I've had them for a few years.
Well, it's not made out of gold.
No, I would get. I like leggings from Amazon too. Like
This is nuts.
This nylon backpack is $130.
No,
they're really pushing it.
They are
with me.
They're pushing it.
Yeah,
you can get this stuff at Gap.
Oh my God, for sure. And I love a Gap run.
I adore Gap.
Got
Gap's
a pair
great.
of jeans at Gap for $8. $5. I brought them up. They were like on sale, and she was like, "Whoa, these are only $5."
That's crazy.
I said, "Okay, ring them up."
Well, then ring it up, baby.
Ring it up.
Well, on that note, ring them up, baby. Don't go to Lululemon. Melissa, where can people find us online?
People can find us on Twitter and Instagram at WebCrawlersPod. We have a Facebook page, Reddit, WebCrawlersPod. Rate and review us. Your reviews
Please.
have been so good lately.
You guys are so funny, and our favorite reviews will always post and read out loud. So yeah. Anyways, thank you for listening. I'm Allie Siegel,
And I'm Melissa Stetton.
And I'm Maria too.
Who's Maria 1?
She's not here anymore.
Bye.
An Erios original.
Powered by Acast.